Enjoy part one of my dynamic conversation with Bishop Frederick Jones. You're going to want to tune in to this one and part two, but enjoy part one. What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. And dig this, man. We really have a brother that has a story, that has a journey, that has a testimony. He just got some good stuff. And we have none other than my man, Bishop Frederick Jones. Now, he's a husband, he's a father, he's also a grandfather. He's the founder and pastor of New Life Community Baptist Church in Bristow, Virginia. He's also the overseer of New Life Community Church in Sierra Leone. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But I'm going to let you know that the journey to the brother getting here has not been a straight line. And that's what we're really going to kind of talk about. There's been some twists and turns there. But brothers and ladies listening too, because y'all like to tune in to what we're talking about, let's welcome my man, Bishop Frederick Jones. How you doing, brother?
Blessings to you, my brother Mike, and thank you so much for this invitation and opportunity, and thank God for your platform, and I feel honored and privileged to be a part of it today, and I'm excited just to share my story where God can be glorified and the people of God can be edified.
Man, that's what this is all about, man. That's what this is all about. Look, you know, we carry our light and we just lighten other candles, right?
That's right. That's
right. It. Lighten other candles. So before we get into your actual journey, man, I always like to start out with shout outs, because who are we without our support system, without those that allow us to shine? And I'll tell you, I got a different perspective on this a couple of interviews ago, where there's a brother who is he's an actor and stunt performer and all of that stuff. And he said, you know, it's funny, when you look at a movie, all the important people get announced first. Executive producer, yeah, starring, right? And I was just like, it made me really rethink this whole thing on how powerful it is to have shout outs out front, because we need to make sure we put those important people out front. So give us a shout out, brother. Give the shout out to those that are helping you to do what you do.
Well, first of all, foremost, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
All of this happened, and then he has surrounded me with some great people. And I have to start off with, when I say great people, is my family. That is a awesome support that I have. My two daughters and my wife, they're my support, as well as my son-in-law. And throughout my ministry, my youngest daughter, she's in her 30s. She's not married yet. Her name is Tiara Jones. And I say she is the brain of what goes on in the background. My platform on Thursday night, that's called Let's Talk About It. She makes all of that happen in the background. She makes me look good. My wife is the praying one, and my oldest daughter, now that she's the one, if I'm having a rough day, she's the one that can make me laugh. She can make a dog laugh. She can come in and she can make me laugh. And then my son-in-law. He is actually my armor bearer when we go places. He's the one that got my back. He is a Marine, and I thank God for him. He's a solid young man, a solid brother, and I'm happy that the Lord sent him my way to be the husband of my daughter. And so you know, I have prayer partners that prays for me from a distance. Over in Sierra Leone, man, I have a family over there that prays for me constantly. So I just thank God for a support system. And I think if you want to be successful and you want to be able to carry out what God has placed in your hands, you need a good support system.
That's so important, man. I mean, literally, who are we without our village? We always state it takes a village to raise a child, but there's no way for us to be successful without a village around us. And so that's why it's so important.
It is. Because let me tell you something, I'll be honest, very transparent. Man, when it comes down to technology and stuff, man, I'm no good at it. So it's what I know my daughter has taught me, and everything that makes us look good, God has blessed her to be able to show us, hey, Dad, this is the way we can do this. We can do this. I said, all right, run with it. So my millennials and the X's and the Z's, they lead the way, man.
They got to. It's so funny you say that, because when we think about, wisdom, and we think about, advice, and we think about guidance, we're always thinking that the young folks are supposed to look to our elders for everything, which there's a role for that. We've been around, or elders have been around the block a couple of times, so they can tell us what's coming and what's around the corner and all of that. But the flip side, technology, and even like the Corona crisis with having to use Zoom and virtual this and virtual that, it's caused the elders to now have to sit at the foot of the Generation X, Generation Z, and the millennials to learn themselves.
You got it, because prior to this pandemic taking place, my daughter was trying to get me to start this a long time ago. And I was like, we old school. We going into the building, standing behind the pulpit, doing that thing. And she said, Dad, you got to get to this. You got to get involved in this. And then when that pandemic hit, man, I was forced to sit down and listen to her. And I tell you something, sometimes we think we know it all, but we don't. And when you get to a place where you know it all and can't nobody tell you something, you're a dangerous person to yourself, and you're dangerous to those who are around you. So I'm never intimidated by the people that are around me. I'm willing to learn. I'm always open, and especially now. And I've never been intimidated as far as having someone around me that might be able to do something better than me. My mindset is, you need to be around those that can do it better than what you're doing it. If you're the smartest one in the room,
you need to leave.
You need to upgrade your crowd.
And it's funny you say that. And I heard it was a quote by Nipsey Hussle, was floating around on Facebook or social media, and it said, if you don't get inspired by your circle, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. Like, I do too. And it's so interesting because, you're a brother who is my elder, but yet you're willing to listen and learn to everybody. Where, and again, and I'll tell you, just full transparency, that's an anomaly to an extent, because a lot of times as we become elders in various circles, we stop listening. What they call it, like when you raise a kid, they call it powdered butt syndrome. Well, if I powdered your butt, I don't want to hear what you got to say. You know what I'm saying? How did you get to that mindset to listen to everybody?
I'm going to tell you, it got 5 years ago. Let me take that back. Let me say about 10 years ago, in my kitchen. Now, I was raised up in a family of 8, 5 boys and 3 girls. My oldest brother, he's gone on to be with the Lord now, as well as my mom. But they taught us certain ways to do things. Something as simple as sweeping the floor. So we're in the kitchen, and I say to my oldest daughter, I say, hey, I need you to sweep the floor for me. And I give her the broom. She started out sweeping it. And I'm like, what are you doing? She said, I'm sweeping the floor. I said, you don't hold a broom like that. This is how you do it. And so I gave the broom back to her, and she said, well, can I say something? I said, sure. She said, what is the issue if we get to the same result? If I'm holding the broom a different way than what you were taught, all that matters is I get to the same result that you want. So I said, let me tell you something. When she said that, light bulb came on in my head. And from that point on, man, I started seeing different, and I started listening more.
That takes me back. I remember I had a manager years ago, and he sat me down and he took a piece of paper and he said, I want to show you what my management style is like. He took a piece of paper, he drew a circle on the piece of paper, and he put a dot in the middle. And he said, look, as long as you stay within this circle, I don't care what you do, because all I want you to do is get to that dot in the middle. Mm-hmm. And so as you're talking, it made me think back to that, because most people romanticize a methodology, right? We romanticize how somebody does it. So I think about it's even funny now. We have kids. We have a 9 and a 7-year-old. And so when we think about like reading or working on reading, I like books. I like to turn pages. I like to hear pages turn, and I like to bend back the corners and highlight in books. Mm-hmm. Whereas somebody else might like to go on an e-reader or like a Kindle. Yeah. Somebody else is all about audiobooks, and then somebody else is about watching documentaries. But the reality is, if you get the information and you process that information, does it really matter how you consume that information?
See, what we have to do is recognize if you're gonna get to where you're trying to go, you got to recognize the gifts and the talents that you got around you. You can't fight it. Now, I'll be honest. I was in a circle. I was in a circle of preachers that probably would have messed me up if the Lord hadn't delivered me out of that circle, because they were so dogmatic, and it was just one way, man. It was just one way, and if it wasn't that way, man, you was just no good. And I'm telling you, some of these guys. I would have done anything for them other than put my soul in jeopardy. Mm-hmm. But the Lord had to move me, and the way that he moved me out of that circle was they had to really do something to break my heart in order for my eyes to come open, because the Lord kept trying to show me. And I wouldn't listen. And because I was that loyal to them. And when my heart got broke over a situation, and we'll talk about this in it, because this is part of my journey. When my heart got broke, my eyes was wide open. I said, Lord, I hear you. And the Lord said, I had to get you to that point for you to see that I had to remove you from this circle.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, Bishop, that is so, again, as you're talking, for me to process, I like to make things relate to a personal story of my own, right? That's how I can attach to something, and that's how I process it. That's how I internalize it. But then that's how I can also apply the wisdom, based off of what somebody does. I'm trying to find connections. And as you were talking, I thought back to a relationship that I was in years before I met my wife. And it was the same situation. It was a scenario in which, like, the girl's mother said, Mike, she's not the one for you. And I'm justifying in my mind, she just don't want me to, she just don't want her daughter to be happy. And she's, I'm justifying. And all kinds of situations happened throughout that relationship that were signs. The Lord saying, Mike, brother, I'm giving you an out. It finally came to the notion of I had to lose a job and had to move away from the city for that to become the straw that broke the camel's back, for me to finally get away and break free. Because me personally, I didn't have enough sense to see it. I didn't have enough sense to be aware of all of those signs that were around me that he was throwing and whispering in my ear saying, Mike, you need to go. Mike, you need to go. I didn't listen until the straw had to break the camel's back, and then things had to escalate to a level that was way out there for me to finally be like, okay, I'm finally done. But I guess my question to you then is, what is it about us? Is it just men? Is it, people in general? What is it about us that it takes us bumping our head or sometimes getting to almost a point of no return where the bridge got to get burned behind us before we finally sever that tie and move forward?
You know what? That's a good question. I think sometimes we don't want to. We don't want to. I seen, like you said, I seen all the signs, but it was something in the back of my mind that says, I need this person to validate me. And I'm gonna tell you something. The Lord showed me that I didn't need it. And here's the heavy part of it. When that person did what they did to me and threw me under the bus, That's what it took for me to break away from that circle. But then when I was thrown under the bus, I walked around with unforgiveness in my heart for years. Now, this is going to lead up to my journey dealing with my wife, because at the age of 23, we got married very early. And at the age of 23, we made plans of what we're going to do, where we're going to go. By 5 years, we were going to be here. 10 years, we were going to be here. And, you know, Proverbs 16:9 says, you know, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And so we had plans, but we didn't know what was coming down the road. And so so my wife got sick from a tick bite. Now let me fast forward a little bit, and then I'll put it in reverse and come back.
Okay.
So she had been sick from the age of 23, and when I tell you, she almost died. But when I fast forward to the situation that the Lord moved me out of this circle, I had unforgiveness in my heart because of the way that I was treated. And I was angry. And because I felt like I was so loyal to this guy, and I just didn't think he would do something to me like that. So I was angry for years. And so a friend of mine, another preacher of mine, called me, and it was on a snowy day. Me and my oldest daughter was on our way to pick up my youngest daughter from work, because I didn't want her to drive back on those icy roads. So as we were going, he just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, Jones," he said, "man, how you doing?" And we just went into a conversation. He said, "Man, how did that situation work out with you and so and so?" And I said, "It hasn't." I said, "Man, you know what he did. I told you my story and how he hurt me." And he said to me, he said, "Listen," he said, "you know what?" He said, "You got to forgive him. You got to call him and you got to forgive him." And I didn't want to hear that. And I was like, "Well, we'll see." I'll say, "I'll pray on it." But that was something I really didn't need to pray over, because the scripture teaches that there is no way we can walk around with unforgiveness in our heart and expect God to bless us. And all at the same time, I had a sick wife in my house. And I know if I had unforgiveness in my heart, none of my prayers to the Lord wouldn't amount to anything when it came down to me praying for her, because I had unforgiveness in my heart. And so I came to the conclusion, I can't fight with the scriptures. I just can't. So what I did was, I called up another pastor. I talked to him about it, and he said, "You know what? Yep, I think you need to do it." And so I called him, Mike. And this guy's seasoned. He's probably got 30 years over me in the ministry. I called him up and I said, "Hey, look, I need to talk with you. First of all, congratulations on your elevation in this organization that you're in." But I said, "I'm not calling because I want anything from you, because you just got elevated in this organization. But I need you to listen to me for a few minutes." And he said, okay. And so I said, "Listen, I know what you did. I know what you said." And I said, "You hurt me. You threw me under the bus." And I said, you really lied. But I said, "It's okay now." I said, "But what I'm calling you for, to tell you I was wrong for all of those years to hold unforgiveness in my heart against you." And he said, "No, Jones, no. And Dorsey, what my prayer was, that as I came clean, I was hoping that he would come clean. Because he was much more seasoned in the ministry than I was. And so as I came clean and I said, "Man, I've been walking around mad and holding unforgiveness because of what you did." And I said, "I'm asking you tonight to forgive me for holding that in my heart against you." Now, mind you, it wasn't my situation. He the one created it and did it. But I had to get that thing out of my heart. And I did. And when I asked him, I said, "All I want to know is, will you forgive me for holding unforgiveness in my heart against you?" He said, "Yeah, man. Yeah, but I wasn't." I said, "Man, listen, don't tell me that you wasn't the one. I know what happened. I know what went down. I know what went down. But I said, I held it in my heart. I'm asking you tonight, will you forgive me?" He said, "Yes." And so then I stopped praying and hoping that he would turn around and say, you know what? I got caught up and I said some things I shouldn't have said about you. Will you forgive me? But it never happened. It never happened. But what I knew that night was I had done what the scriptures said do. I followed. I was obedient to the Lord when he spoke through my friend, the other pastor, telling me I needed to do this. I was obedient. And my hands was clean. My heart was clean. Now I was in position that whatever prayer I prayed for my wife, I know the Lord was going to hear it because I had removed that stain out of my heart. Asking him to forgive me. And to this day, he has yet to say, hey, I was wrong in this. Let me come back and say I'm sorry. He never did. But that's between him and God. I still love him as a brother. But one thing about forgiveness is that once you forgive a person, that doesn't mean they get to come back and sit at the same table with you or have a front row seat. Ooh, lost that.
Man, you have to dive into that because, you know, I'll tell you, there have been countless examples, you know, when we see someone publicly forgive somebody or we see somebody publicly, you know, and I remember probably one of the ones that got the most attention, especially within the Black community, was with Botham Jean. You know, when the brother was killed, when he was in his apartment and the lady walked in, the cop, you know, killed him in his own apartment and said all this stuff. And then in a courtroom, how the brother of Botham Jean said, I forgive you. And he was talking to the lady who killed his brother.
I was watching that.
And it was, and I remember looking through social media and I, you know, being angry at the time myself, you know, I was conflicted because, you know, there was a lot of, oh, this is a publicity stunt and why are we always forgiving? And then they're going to do this again. But then when you take a step back and you go back to the concept of the scriptures, we're not forgiving for them. We're forgiving for us. Yeah. And so it's regardless about them. It's not about releasing them. It's about you releasing that hatred in your heart so that you can be free to move forward. Talk to that a little bit, man.
If you don't, it will destroy you. Mm-hmm. It will literally destroy you. Because let me tell you something. It was years that I carried around and I wasn't at my best at preaching. I wasn't at my best in ministering because I was carrying that around, and that can eat at you. It can eat at you, and every time somebody say something, it triggers it in your mind, and you bring it right back. You regurgitate it right back up again, and all of that same old stuff comes right back up again. It's like you can't get past it. But once you forgive that person, and God moves that thing out of your heart, it doesn't matter how many times the person's name comes up. Now I'm free. I'm free. I have no anger whatsoever. Let me add another piece to it. When I was in high school, I think I was a junior or senior in high school. Got into this argument with this guy. Apparently he thought I wanted his girl. And so I had heard that the dude was looking for me. And now, mind you, at that particular time, I won't say.
Oh, you're pre-bishop. See that? Look, we got a pre-bishop and we got a bishop. So pre-Bishop Jones, it might not have been a Bible in my hand. It might have been something else in my pocket. So
I won't save then. And so I got word that the guy was looking for me. So 6th period happens. I'm bending down at my locker. I'm getting books out my locker. And I turn around and this dude is right up on me. And so he swings, glances my shoulder. And when I get up and I get him down and I'm getting ready to go to work on him, they pull me off of him. But I'm still mad. I'm mad because, I didn't get a chance to mop the floor with him. I'm mad. And Dorsey, I kept this in my heart for years. Here is how I knew when I parallel that story with this story. Here's how I knew that forgiveness, carrying unforgiveness in your heart, it can ruin you. I was in Richmond, out of school. This thing done passed, years gone by. I see this dude in Richmond on the street, Richmond, Virginia. The enemy says to me, nobody's watching. Run him over right now with the car and be done with it. And I contemplated it. When I contemplated it, it won't none but the mercy of God that halted me. And I said, I was about to kill this dude. That's when I knew I needed help. And that's why it's important that you get that out of your heart, because when the enemy gets the opportunity to play with it, man, you can be his puppet.
Dude, that's that.
You can become the enemy's puppet, because everything in your mind, he's now showing you images, and he's playing these mind games with you. And so it was shortly after that I went to college and I got saved. And so circling back around to this, I knew once I forgave him, and this guy that I was going to run over on the street, if I see him now, I can hug him and tell him I love him. Man, I'm so free with him. I'm so free with this pastor. It's a feeling, man, that I can't even describe in words. But all I know is just like something sitting on you, been lifted up off of you. Now the key is now I've forgiven you. You held a little spot in my life. You held a front row seat in my life. Now I've forgiven you. I can put you in the balcony now. You don't have the right now to set up on the front row seat. But that doesn't mean I still hate you and I'm mad with you. You just lost that privilege.
Oh, because when we explain forgiveness in the context of the way that you just explained it, that would make sense to those who struggle with forgiveness. Because when people say forgiveness, a lot of times people automatically assume that means, okay, you just forget everything, you let them back in and all of that. Because there have been scenarios in which people have been abused. People have been taken advantage of, and all that doesn't say like, no, you just let that person back in your life or back around your kids or back around your, no, it's just saying, I am letting my hatred for you go. That doesn't mean I'm bringing you back. That doesn't mean that you coming in the house. That doesn't mean you coming to the cookout. You ain't, none of that. It just means I'm letting the hate in my heart for you go so that I can free myself and move forward. Because if not, I'm stuck. Dude, I'm going to tell you what, and brothers listening, I would challenge every last one of you, especially with the social media stuff that's going on, looking at your personal life, looking at challenges, circumstances, everything that's going on. Who do you need to forgive right now? Like real talk, because I'm going to be honest with you, everybody, if you're listening to this, and if you're honest with yourself, there's probably somebody that you need to forgive right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that you got to make some big public display, but in your heart, you need to forgive that person because that thing has been holding you back.
And here's what I would say to any of your listeners. You may have been wondering how come certain prayers haven't been answered. Why is it taking so long for this door to open? It's probably because you got to get that thing out of your heart. Now, someone might say that's watching us right now, well, what if the person that did something to me is no longer living? Here's what the Lord did for me with a member of mine who was sexually molested by her father at a young age. And he's dead. And she just couldn't bring herself to see him. And so she said to me, what do I do? Here's what the Lord said to me. Get a chair and sit in it. And you look at her and tell her everything you wanted to say to him, say it to me. Get it out. The main thing is getting it out. You got to get it out. You got to release it. And I just sat there. And I'm going to tell you something. I've never experienced a situation like that in my life. She was speaking just like her father was sitting right there in front of her. And when she got done, it was like a spirit of peace just came all over her. Done with it. With it. Done with it.
That is powerful.
Yeah. So anybody that's watching, that's listening, that will be watching, it is for your benefit that you forgive. And you know, we always say, but it wasn't my fault. But it ain't about them. It's for you. It's for you. It's for you, because if you don't, the devil will use you like a puppet the rest of your life. You'll never be free to maneuver as the Lord needs you to, while you're heading towards your destiny.
Gotta forgive.
You gotta forgive.
And so you touched on it a little bit. You know, you're one of 8 growing up, correct? And then you're the youngest?
I'm the youngest out of 8, 5 boys and 3 girls.
Oh Lord, so boy, you got to be tough then. You're a tough brother. You're the youngest of 8.
Scrap, man. I had to be a scrapper when you met at the dinner table, man.
Yeah.
A scrapper quick, man. You had to grab quick. We was poor growing up, man. So you know, you cook one chicken for 8 people, man.
That's one piece, unless.
So you know, Daddy gonna get his from jump. He gonna get the biggest piece from jump. And now you gotta when stuff coming around at the table, man, you gotta be able to do it, man.
I love it. Yeah. But that helps you to grow into who you are. You know what I'm saying? Learning how to scrap, learning how to network and build and grow and share, and you know, by default, you ain't got no choice.
That's right. And so let me take you back.
Okay.
Let's put the car in reverse and let's go back to me and my wife, young, 23.
Okay.
23. She's gotten bit by the tick. She's got Lyme disease. It had just Lyme disease they was just learning about it. And but prior to that, like I said, we had made plans, and we had went to pick strawberries, and she must have picked up a tick somewhere while we went to pick strawberries up. And the way that Lyme disease works, it takes a while to get into your bloodstream. All of a sudden, she just started feeling sluggish and sick, and like, honey, I ain't got no energy, and we going from doctor to doctor. And it's just like the woman in the scriptures that had been sick, and she went from doctor to doctor, spent all her money, and nothing worked. Went to this one doctor, and he said it was all in her head. And so we were living back home in Louisa County. We went to UVA, and I'll never forget this lady. Her name was Dr. Starr. My wife had a team of probably about 10 to 12 doctors. These were some of the best at UVA. And they were all on her case, trying to figure out what was what. And I remember the doctor saying to my family, if God don't work a miracle, she ain't gonna make it. And so they had her in intensive care. My mother-in-law had wrote scriptures on a flashcard, index cards. Wife couldn't talk. She could barely open her eyes. Her speech was slurred, because now the Lyme disease has gotten to the last stage, and it was going to her brain. And the only way they figured it out, they had to do a spinal tap. That's how they figured it out. But by that time, a lot of damage had been done. So she was in intensive care. Mother-in-law had wrote scriptures on index cards, but my wife couldn't see them. And her speech was slurred. Here's my wife's story. And she said one night while she was in intensive care, she said late. She knew it was late, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. This one nurse came in. She said that nurse came in and sat down beside her bedside and started rubbing her hands. And that nurse quoted every scripture that was on those index cards. The index cards was in the little drawer beside her bed. That nurse came, rubbed her hands, and quoted those scriptures. Didn't even know the index cards was in there. And so what happened was a couple of days after that, my wife started improving. And so when they allowed her to come out of intensive care, she said, I want to thank the lady who came in my room the other night. And they said, what lady? And they said, these were the only two ladies here that was on your case. She said, not so. She said, it was another lady that came in my room. And what we determined that the Lord had sent an angel by her bedside and ministered to her. And she never seen that lady before in her life. She come out of intensive care, went from intensive care to a regular room, and from a regular room after a few days, and then home. She stayed in the hospital for 54 days. And now this Lyme disease started a snowball effect in her body. It went from one autoimmune disease to the next. She probably had, to this day, still have symptoms of Lyme disease where it affects her lupus, something called Sjogren's disease. She has no adrenal glands. She has the worst type of rheumatoid arthritis that you could have. She's 53 years old. And at one point, Dorsey, she was probably taking 50 pills a day. And it just snowballed into one thing after another. And everything that was going on with her, it was like rare. But it didn't all happen. It was during a process of time. So let me back up. So after she got through the Lyme disease, she started doing well. We started on with our life. I got called to the first church to pastor. But before I get there, let me back up. One day, we were living in Northern Virginia. We were going down to visit our parents. We just talking. All out of the blue, she says, I never want to be married to a pastor. I was like, where'd that come from? I mean, we weren't even talking about church. We weren't even talking nothing close to church. And then you blot this out. You will never want to be married to a pastor. I said, where did that come from? She said, I don't know. I just said it. And so I said,
Wow.
But her dad, she grew up because her dad was a pastor.
Okay.
And the reason why she didn't want to be married to a pastor because she saw everything her dad went through. But we weren't even talking anything about that. But so I said, okay, I don't know why you came up and said that. But anyway, we going on down the road and we get on another subject. And a year later, the Lord called me into the ministry. And when I tell you he was dealing with me, man. And the more he dealt with me, the more I tried to run. And so I felt like, okay. I don't know what it is that the Lord is trying to do. I thought maybe it's going to be a deacon in church, but that won't it. I'd have took any position in the church other than preaching. I'd have took the janitor, anything, man.
Like anything. Like that ain't me, right?
That I just did not want. I would hear a lot of my friends, this person was being called into the ministry, and I was like, I'm glad it's them and not me. And so I remember this particular weekend, my wife stayed down and spent some time with my mom before my mom passed away. And then she went to spend a few days with her mom. So I came back that Sunday night to Manassas, and this thing was on me all the way up the road, Mike. And I remember before I got into bed, I knelt down to pray. And I said, Lord, whatever this is, I can't take it no more. I surrender. Whatever it is, just let me know what you want me to do. And you know, a lot of people always say the Lord speaks to them in the middle of the night. Well, that's what he did to me. It was right around about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was asleep. I was in a dead sleep. And I'm telling you, I heard this voice say, preach my word. And Mike, I sat straight up in the bed. In the dark, and I'm looking around like, who said that? I laid back down and I heard it again.
Mm.
So this was starting, going in from Sunday into a Monday. And all that week, man, this thing has turned me up. It's eating me up because I don't know what to do with what's going on inside of me.
Mm.
And so I said to my wife at the end of the week, I said, when I get home, I got to go see my pastor. And so when I got home, she was at my dad's house. I said, I'm going to see my pastor. She said, what's wrong? I said, I'll talk to you once I get back. So when I got to my pastor's house, he said, come on in. He said, come on back in my study. And so when I went back into the study, he said, what's going on? So I told him. He busted out, started laughing. He said, I was wondering how long it was going to take for you to get this message. And I was like, what are you saying? He said, I saw this a long time. He said, the Lord showed me a long time ago. And he said, when the Lord showed it to me, he said to the Lord, you're going to take one of the best ones I got and you're going to call him into the ministry. And because I know what type of person he is, he's going to be called to a church in no time. Mm. And so he said, okay. He said, I'm not blind by this. The Lord had already shown it to me. So he said, what we're going to do is we will make an announcement to the church and then we'll set up a date for your trial sermon. Mm. When I made the announcement to the church, I remember seeing my mom crying because she always said, you're going to preach. Mm. She said that when I was 12 years old, you're going to preach. And so I remember watching her face and she said, finally, I knew the Lord was going to do this. Mm. But here's the thing. Before I got a chance to preach my initial sermon, she went home to be with the Lord. Mm. I saw her on a Sunday. I came back down to my dad's house, saw her on a Monday. And here's the thing. When I got there on that Monday, when we was getting ready to leave to come back to Manassas, I said to my mom and dad, I'm coming back the weekend. I'm going to pick y'all up because we going to a wedding. My cousin was getting married. I said, well, I'm going to drive y'all to the wedding. Y'all ain't have to drive. Just get in my car and I'm going to chauffeur y'all. My mom said something out of the blue, just like, she said, I ain't going. I said, come on, Mom. Mm. She said, nope, I ain't going to D.C. to die. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Mm. I said, you ain't going nowhere. What are you talking about? You ain't going to die. She said, I ain't going to D.C. to die. I said, Mom, stop talking like that. Ain't nothing going to happen to you.
Wow.
That was on a Monday. 2:00 Wednesday morning, I get a phone call. Mom was gone. Mm. I get the kids up, and here's what I did. Here's what I did. It broke me when I heard it. So I told my wife, I said, get the girls together. And we were upstairs. I went down on the bottom floor. Lights were still off. I sat on the sofa and I prayed. And I said, Lord, I said, I just need you to tell me that she's all right and she's with you. And immediately, spirit of peace came over me. Mm. And the Lord just let me know I got her. Mm. And I should have known it because I was the one who led my mom and dad both to Christ. Mm. But at that time, so much was going on.
Yeah.
So when the Lord said that to me, I was able to get up. We got the kids. We drove an hour and a half, get to my dad's house. Man, Dorset, people everywhere. I'm telling you, cars everywhere. And when I got there, my dad's youngest brother, he's going on to be with the Lord too. He said to me, he walked up to me, he said, you got to be strong for everybody. Mm. He said, you can't break down. You got to be strong for the family. The family needs you. Mm. And Mike, I went for years without even grieving.
Wow.
Until one Sunday evening, after I gotten called to a church, this was years. The first church I was called to, I stayed there for 7 years. And that was a learning experience for me. When I say learning, it was a learning experience because I dealt with a lot of family members. Mm. And now you want to find out if your family is crazy, you deal with them with a church meeting. You see all kind of stuff, man. So it was a learning experience for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Lord, why'd you send me here? Mm. But little did I know, the Lord was directing my steps. He was preparing me for everything that I saw and everything I had to experience. I leave that church, and I pastored a church in Warrenton. I was there for 7 years. First 4 years, it was good. Last 3 years, Mike, I got my butt kicked. They wore me out, man. Just the officers of the church. They were so controlling, man. So controlling to the point where the Lord had showed me the vision for the church for 3 to 5 years. And I remember going into a church meeting and I just laid it all out. And after laying it all out, and I said, this is where we're going to be going and doing for the next 3 to 5 years. After that meeting, the chairman said, I need to see you in the office. And I come in the office, and all of them come in there behind it.
This concludes part 1 of my conversation with Bishop Frederick Jones. Make sure to tune in to part 2 coming out tomorrow. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.